Welcome to R.A.D. Red. It's Michelle Barone, and I'm so excited to be here with my co-host Ashleigh McPherson.
Hey.
Ash, you ready for this one?
Zeeds, this is one of my favorite topics. I'm ready to get into it and find out all the tea.
Being Italian, we know all about this. We've seen it on TV. Not too close to our family, but definitely can't wait to hear about your family, my friend. I am here with Karen Gravano. Let's give it up for Karen.
Had a moment of clarity, and now I know that my time is now.
Karen, you are here, daughter of Sammy The Bull. I can't imagine what it was like growing up like that. But talking off air, we did talk a little bit about being a traditional Italian family. Right.
Growing up, it was very traditional.
Yeah.
Like Italian, had to have dinner every night at 5:30. Sunday sauce, dinner, it was very normal.
Yeah.
Whatever happened outside the house didn't come inside until later.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about your entire story from the beginning. So when you were little, traditional Italian family, when did you know that your family was different, that the mob was a part of your family, was your family?
So growing up, I didn't really feel different because everyone around me, their families were involved in that, like my cousins. And, so we were like a community. When I was about 10 years old, one time I had gone to school and I was invited over a friend's house to play. And we were outside and she goes, see that big house over there? It was on Toad Hill, Staten Island, the real ritzy area. And I was to that house that she was pointing to because it was Paul Castellano's house. And I'm like, yeah, I was like all happy, like what she was going to talk about. And she goes, my family says I can't go over to the house. There's a gangster that lives in there. And I'm like, I didn't know what a gangster was. In my mind, I'm like, oh, well, maybe my father's a gangster too. And one day we can live in a big house in the hill. So that was the first time I ever heard the word. And I remember going home and asking my father and mother, I'm like, Dad, are you a gangster? And he's like, what are you talking about? Where did you get this? And I had told him the story. And my mother's like, no, he's in construction. That's the typical thing for the mob family. But he really was in construction, in all fairness. He had multiple construction businesses, to be honest, and not in the height of the 80s and 90s. Like my father was the go-to man in construction for the mob. He controlled the unions. He controlled, multiple companies. And
he's a very powerful man.
Yeah.
And someone that, a lot of people in that industry looked up to, for sure.
Right.
So, before he became an informant, I want to talk about what life was like at home prior to after, because I know things changed a lot for you guys.
Right.
So let's talk about before. Were there buzzes on the street like, hey, this is what's going on? I know you heard the word gangster once.
Right.
But what happened after that, like growing up? And how did you realize that your father was Sammy the Bull?
Staten Island, and I said this when we started Mob Wives, I said it's the breeding ground for the mafia. It's like everyone moved to Brooklyn. So growing up in Staten Island, people looked up to that life. They looked up to my father, and I did start to hear, like, your father's in the mob and all this other stuff. Probably when I was about 16 and Paul Castellano was killed.
Yeah.
I knew. I was like, yeah, he's a gangster. What a gangster exactly was or what he did outside of the house, I still didn't have a full understanding. But that's when I really started to understand that his lifestyle was dangerous. It involved murder, racketeering, whatever that was at the time.
Right.
But at that point is when I knew.
And what did you feel like? You're a teenage girl. You have peer pressure. You got a lot going on yourself. And then you have this dad with this moment where it hit you, like, wow.
Yeah.
What did you feel like?
I really didn't feel too much because, like I said, there was still people that were like me.
Yep.
I grew up and surrounded by people with fathers in that lifestyle.
So maybe it was just normal.
I also grew up in a community where people looked up to these men. So I'm not just talking, the construction industry and things that he controlled or people that feared him. We would go to restaurants and there would be old women and people that looked up to them. And, to my knowledge and how it was explained to me later in life was the mob was, protectors of their communities. So growing up in an Italian neighborhood, whether it was the old lady down the block or, my father helped people with construction and he took care of his community. So there was a lot of respect and a lot of love that I seen him get and fear. But mostly from where I stood, it was mostly like love and respect. So I thought, if he's a bad person, he can't really be that bad because he gets a lot of love. So it was a way that I was able to rationalize it.
Yep.
In my brain.
Well, it's interesting because in the Italian culture, they are the protectors, and at that time period, it was very respected.
Right.
It came with a lot of power too, and a lot of money, and a lot of knowledge, and it was kind of like, you don't touch the families of the higher ups, and that was that. And being in that family, I can just imagine, the allure that you have going out in the community. It's like it's them, right? People knew.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because I kind of like Renee on Mob Wives, she fed into that.
Yeah.
She loved being a gangster's daughter. She walked in a club and said, do you know who my father is? And fed into that whole thing where I was more of the kid that was sneaking out and doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing. So I kind of stayed away from it. I didn't want anyone to know. People were like, you're Sammy's daughter, right? No.
No.
Who? So yeah. It was just, like I said, I had a very normal childhood. Abnormal with certain things that I seen, but I was able to rationalize it. I mean, I did grow up, and I said this in a couple of episodes, surrounded by like murder.
Yeah.
And I know that's crazy to say, but it's something that I seen on the regular, and I was able to rationalize it and understand it to my ability to be able to say, okay, maybe my father's involved in some of this stuff, but maybe not, because he just acted so normal, right? It was like...
It was calm, cool, collected, no matter what.
So there was always that question, and it always teetered in my brain, like back and forth, but I never looked at him as like a bad person, or I looked at him as my provider, my protector, and my father has like a very cool demeanor.
Yep.
Like he didn't walk in a place and everyone feared him. He was like, hey, buddy, hey, sit down. He was charismatic. He was a jokester, still to this day, which is actually kind of embarrassing. I see him on social media, and I'm like, what is this man going to say? But you never know what's going to come out of his mouth, and that's just who he always, he had an ability to make people feel calm and comfortable around him, but if you crossed him, he also could kill you in like 0.1 second.
Without even thinking
the
about
blink
it.
of an eye, yeah.
And so being around that, like you said, you were in a neighborhood all Italian. It was normal. Everyone was going through it, going to a different heritage, a neighborhood with different heritage. It may not have been that case, but for you, it seemed pretty normal. Growing up past that and trying to date, what was that like for you?
Oh, I can only imagine that was like terrifying for every boy in school.
I'm like, you bring somebody home, they might end up in the construction company.
Yeah, I know.
Somewhere.
I did have a boyfriend that had to work for the construction company.
Stop.
And his mother was like horrified. Like every time he's like, don't have a fight with her, don't do this. But he was in our house. Like he had dinner with us. He went on vacations with us. So one thing about my father is, obviously he's a father. So if someone does something to his daughter, he's going to do something, but he didn't put his gangster into that. As a father, wholeheartedly, he's going to protect his family. But, he was also, he didn't play the gangster role with my boyfriends. Not that I see.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, because the mob life is an organization.
Right.
It's completely strategic. It's not like they're just offing people left and right. It's if someone crosses or doesn't pay their debt or doesn't treat someone right or loses the respect, right? It's all those things. And it's not one time or two. This is like...
Right.
It's a very strategic approach. It's a business.
Well, you join something that you know the consequences of.
Correct.
And I always say this, everybody that got involved in that lifestyle went in willingly. They wanted to be part of that. And, the way the mob, I guess, was explained to my father, the way he viewed it was a brotherhood. And we protect our own. And, coming here, especially coming from Italy, when a lot of Italians came over, they were immigrants. They had it hard. So the mob actually kind of formed to be able to break into the construction industry, the garment industry. And it was really to help, like an organization, like you said, it was to be able to take care of it. That's why it was a family. It was structured after that.
And speaking of that, it's so interesting because they would help find jobs for immigrants. They would house them if they needed it. You bring your cousin over and they're working on the farm, but the next one's working in the construction company, right? So it was really the good intent, but all you heard about was the bad stuff.
Right.
And there was a lot of empathy behind closed doors, right? Like all the wives were friends. And so what was it like being on Mob Wives, and what role do you think, did you portray the role you wanted to portray on television, or did you hold back a little?
it's kind of funny because how Mob Wives came to be was Jennifer and I, which Jennifer was an executive producer for Mob Wives. We were actually talking about doing like a scripted show or maybe a movie, and like we were putting some things together. And she came to me one day and she said, listen, I'm pitching this idea about women whose husbands went to prison. Someone had contacted her, they were doing the show, and she said they came to me to cast. What do you think about Drita? And I said, oh, she's a character. You should definitely put her on TV. And she's like, what about Renee? I said, no, definitely. So anyway, to make a long story short, I actually came in and they filmed the sizzle reel. We were all together. We filmed the sizzle reel. And,
awesome.
You know, people don't know that. They think like the first time I ever came back was that scene that you've seen. But we filmed a sizzle reel.
But I like that you filmed the sizzle reel together, and to see where it started and where it went is iconic. I mean,
Right.
that's incredible because
it was an iconic sizzle reel. And I think the thing about us is like it was the height of reality TV.
Mm-hmm.
And we weren't just a cast that was ensembled and put together and made to interact with each other. Like we had history, like deep-rooted history. So when we did that sizzle reel, I was in it, of course. And Jennifer's like, oh, just come in it, because the guy that was actually behind it was like, we have to get Karen.
Yeah.
And I was like, absolutely not. I am not doing reality TV. I have way too much baggage. Like everyone, and I'm not saying this in a downplaying them, but no one knew who they were. So like I'm coming with the whole Sammy the Bull, John Gotti baggage, and I'm gonna get, it's not happening. Well, fast forward, all of a sudden the sizzle reel comes out. It's great. Like we're going on pitches and everyone's like, okay. So it went from, and it wasn't supposed to be called Mob Wives at all. It was supposed to be about women overcoming stuff and people's husbands or family members went to prison. And then, you know, that whole housewife franchise kind of like took off, and they were like, we have the Mob Wives and we have Karen. She has to be on this show because she has real mob history.
Yes.
And some of the other girls did. Some had actually no history, but I'm not here to throw shade on.
Yeah.
Because I won't like people forever. But some of them, we had history, and it just, Harvey Weinstein got involved. He jumped on board with the show, and it just took off. There was a bidding war, and then, I guess history
made it. Yeah. And that's why I asked if you held back ever, because, in your position, it was real.
Right.
And that's where it's different. When it's authentic, did you actually pour your heart into it? Or do you feel like at times you held back?
Oh, no, I went ballistic, because I'll tell you what happened. When the show came, it was like, I felt like for me, I was the one that really went through struggles. Like there was a hit put on my brother's life.
Yep.
My family moved away. We moved to Arizona. We got arrested. I lost everything. Like my stuff was on steroids compared to, not taking away because Renee went through stuff
real.
and everyone.
It was real.
But it was like, this was due to that lifestyle. So I lived the glamour, but I also lived the heartache. So when the show was pitched, it was like about women who went through struggles. And then next thing you know, it's about my ex-boyfriend, and we're like, this isn't what it is. I don't care about that. And we're like fighting every day. And I didn't understand reality TV. So I was going crazy. I mean, if Jennifer was here right now, she would tell you, like, it never ended. We were on camera, off camera. Like, our shit was 24 hours. It just never ended. Like, we were like, tell her to meet me now. There's so much, like, even the producers of Mob Wives, like, we laugh now because there's so much stuff that happened off camera that was better than what happened on camera.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as far as, I kind of felt bamboozled in the beginning because I didn't come back to, first of all, nobody had to like me. I was already in the room with you guys. We already pitched the show.
Exactly.
So it kind of like took that turn, and like, yeah, there were things, but I can honestly say we were never scripted. Or we guided into situations, yes, but we literally like fought from our heart because we had so much passion about things that we went through. Did it take a different turn and we're arguing about things that really didn't matter? Yes. Mm-hmm. So was I angry at the time when it was happening? Yes. Because I'm like, this is such a nothing in my life. But now I could sit back and say, I get it. Because we were an iconic show.
Yeah.
It is, whether I love it or like people on the show, the cast, especially us four coming in season one, was magic. It was iconic. It happened. Would I do it again? Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's what I want to hear, because that's what I love.
This time I'm coming with a hit team. No, I'm only kidding.
That's right.
My father's home.
That's right.
Michelle, have you seen these stunning pieces from Rock and Roll Designs?
Absolutely. I am obsessed. Like, this white jade is my absolute favorite. It goes with every outfit.
Totally. I love that piece. I'm actually wearing it as well. I feel like every time I wear it, my vibes are just so high.
Oh my God, me too. I have to tell you, same here. It's either the chunky white bracelet or necklace for me. Love them. It's not too over the top either.
I feel like I could dress it up, dress it down. You know, I can wear it out. I can wear them to the gym even. I bring them
Exactly.
everywhere with me.
Yeah, and they're like really strong too. Like, they don't break and they're chic. Love it.
Rock and Roll Designs has definitely become a staple in my accessory collection, and Rock and Roll Design can become a perfect addition to your collection too. Every piece of jewelry is custom, and every crystal has a special meaning that will help you with your self-care practices. Check out their websites at www.rockandrolldesign.org to find the perfect piece for you.
Real mob daughter in the house. Let's talk about your book, New York Times bestseller. I'm so excited to talk about it. What inspired you to write it? Obviously, all of your experience, but tell me some of the things that are in it. If people want to go buy it, you know, we want to entice them here. What's in it?
So that's my story. You know, that's really what I went through. I went from being the most celebrated mob daughter to I can't even come in people's houses. My whole community turned on me. And I felt like, for me at 19 years old, I didn't understand that life. I didn't do anything. That was my father's world, his life. So people that I considered family, uncles, protectors, turned on me.
Yep.
And at 19 years old, and this is, you know, why I say Mobwise was, I agreed to join the cast, because at 19 years old, I had to know if I was gonna walk into something where I might get killed and not walk out of. And I don't think no 19-year-old girl should ever have to go through that, but I did, and it made me stronger. And the book was just my way of telling a story. Because even on Mobwise, we never, like, until then, none of us ever talked about it.
Yep.
Like, it was what mob? Like, Renee, when she says that, it's an iconic
Right.
line, because they said, how do you feel about the mob? And she said, what mob? Because none of us ever spoke about it.
Exactly.
So that was for me to be able to tell my story and what I went through.
Yep. And going through the book writing process, was it hard for you? Was it almost like therapy, kind of?
It was kind of like therapy. Everyone asked me if I went to therapy, and I don't know, maybe I should have, but for me, I think that
You're
was...
a bad bitch. You don't need to go nowhere. You're good.
No, I will say this, though. When I was younger and my father cooperated, I always felt like I had to be bad because everybody judged me for what he did. So I thought in my mind, people accepted him and loved him and respected him when he was bad. So maybe if I'm bad, they won't judge me. So I went out and, you know,
rebelled.
Yeah. Did things that I shouldn't have never did. And it cost me, eventually my family got in trouble in Arizona. We got arrested for selling ecstasy, and that's not really what we were. The whole thing was blown out of proportion. There's a whole, actually did a documentary that'll be coming out about that, because there's so much behind the scenes that led up to that. But I think some of my actions, because I cared about what people thought, created that situation to happen. So when I was able to sit down and tell my book, my story, it was like, I understand my mistakes, and I can't blame anything that happens in my life on someone else or be angry or be mad. It's who I am.
Yep.
So I think that was like my rebirthing experience, where I was able to really just sit down, because prior to that, I held so much anger. Like, I was so mad at my father for cooperating, and I didn't understand it. But while he was, you know, doing what he was doing, I was still living in the heat of it and having to go through my stuff. So for me, it was like trying to put the blame on him or be mad and be angry made me act out of character. Hence, my whole family got arrested. We lost pretty much everything, and it had to start over. So I was able to finally just tell my story, and I understand. I don't blame anyone for my mistakes. I accept them. I am who I am, and I have to make me be a better teacher to my daughter, which I did, and you know, it turned out great because she's an amazing young lady.
Yep, and she's doing well, right, in the finance world.
Yes. She is in the finance, which first of all, my daughter used to be so shy. She barely I used to think, oh my God, she's gonna have social issues, because she was like timid, right? And here she is, she comes to New York and she's in the heart of finance, and she's a beast.
You know what? We gotta give it up, because that right there is amazing.
She's a girl boss.
From what you went through and growing up like this, and then writing your book, having all the anger, going through all the mistakes, being on a reality show, that in itself is freaking crazy.
Yeah, and draining, I can
And then
imagine.
draining,
Oh, yeah.
always being mic'd and everyone wanting a piece, and then going through these highs and lows of people that love you or didn't love
Yeah.
you. All of this, that's just one of those things would tear somebody up.
Right, yeah.
And you've been through it all, and you raised such an incredible young woman. So congrats to you.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Thank you. She's doing amazing. Actually, she was just on like, what was it, like Forbes,
Yep.
you know, top inspirational
That's
people. Yeah,
amazing.
she has a whole team that works under her.
That's
I could
awesome.
talk about her all day long, but she's
We're here for it, you know?
She's definitely a boss, and I'm very proud of her.
Where
so.
can people follow her so we can see more of her accolades?
She's Karina C. Brooks, I think.
Okay.
On social media.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we tag her in it. And good shout out to Karina. So keep doing your
Yes.
thing, girl.
And if anyone needs any money to borrow, small business, Alpine Advance.
That's
She's
right.
like,
All right. Reach out to Karina. She's your girl.
She'll
Awesome.
get your money.
That's it. I love it. And now, you know, we talked about the book. We talked about your daughter. And you also have a store, right?
Yes, I have a spa,
Yes.
a wellness center called Body Depot.
Ooh.
It's in Hazlet, New
that.
I
Jersey.
need that Body Depot in my life.
We're coming.
What services do you offer?
We offer body contouring, facials, and we are booked solid. I don't know if you guys seen like that viral head spa. where they
Yes.
just-
Yes.
We do it.
No way.
It's
oh my
an
God,
amazing
squeeze us
treatment.
in.
Yes.
Squeeze us in,
Yes,
please.
Mom, I'll definitely do it. It is like, and I'm such like a perfectionist when it comes to skin. I don't know if anyone knew this about me, but I was an esthetician before Mob Wives.
Really?
I actually
Really?
gave up my spa to come here and film
Wow.
this. Listen, when the show was pitched to me, it was the height of reality TV, the Kardashians. I'm like, oh, we're gonna be flying on jets and we're gonna be, yeah, that didn't happen. But anyway, so I gave up the spa, and I always studied, and I always like advanced my career with like, you know,
Aesthetics.
advanced training and stuff. So anyway, when we got the spa, it just all of a sudden overnight, like we became a success. And so, like she was actually an influencer that posted us, and we have one of those things where you can go to bed and people book, and we woke up and we didn't even know how to work it yet, and I have like
Oh my
20 appointments.
gosh.
So I'm in there like learning how to do the treatment while we're in business, and I'm like, okay, that didn't work, that worked.
We're booked
But
for an hour,
anyway,
you know, for
yeah.
75 appointments in the next hour. We got-
Training. It's
That's
trial
basically
period.
what
Yeah.
happened, and it's amazing. It worked out. My partner's amazing, and we're just having fun with it.
That is so, what a story, man.
Wow.
Hazlet, New Jersey, Body Depot. Yeah.
Check it out.
You've done
Hazlet,
it
New
all.
Jersey.
Wow.
We gotta go. I want to know a little bit more about your background. You know, you said something earlier about your dad. When he became an informant, you were so upset with him.
Right.
Can you tell me why and what you went through at that point?
Well, I think, you know, first of all, growing up, you never snitch, you never rat, right? That's what we were taught. Me and my brother would tell on each other and we would get in trouble. So in my mind, I didn't understand how he could tell, right? Like, what are you doing? The government to us was always the enemy.
Right.
And I had to really understand the betrayal and why my father did what he did. And it took years and a lot of sit downs and a lot of crying and a lot of talking. But again, that was his world. And, you know, he was loyal to Cosa Nostra.
Yep.
He was very loyal to John Gotti. I
Yep.
mean, he gave, that was his first family,
Yep.
the mob. And when he got arrested and he heard the Gotti tapes and he heard the betrayal and John was setting him up to take the fall and his lawyers were contacting him, my father said he just had the weakest moment of his life and he just broke and he was just done. He wanted to walk away from it. Like, for him, I can't speak on what he must have felt at that time, but, you know, to be able to basically go out there and be a soldier to Cosa Nostra and kill for that, and he's lost some of his best friends, and then to feel betrayed. You know, he said his first instinct, and I say this all the time, and people really don't understand the core of this comment. His first instinct was he should have killed John, because that's what they do in that world.
Of
John
course.
betray him.
Absolutely.
But he just decided he was done, and he walked away. And when he walked away, that shattered my world, right? Because that's what I grew up not really understanding, but embedded in. And when he decided to walk away, everybody turned on us. And, you know, at 19 years old, I'm like, wait, what? I have to learn the mob. I had to understand betrayal. I had to understand things that like 19-year-old girls shouldn't even fathom in their imagination. So I was angry.
How did you sleep at night worrying about being killed or being, you know, in a position, truly 19 years old, like you don't know whose house to go into. These are your best friends, your
Yeah.
aunt and uncles.
Yeah.
Right. How did you do it? How did you get through that time period? What did your
A
mom
lot
think?
of parties, I was at the Limelight. I was at the Palladium and the Limelight a lot at that time. Definitely.
Well, that's a good way to do it.
You know, I will say this, and this is why Mob Wives did have such roots. Jennifer Graziano, which was Renee's sister,
Yep.
she's my friend. My cousin Ramona, like I had a core of friends that we just looked past that, even though their fathers were allegedly involved in that lifestyle. We were just had our own thing, you know, and they never made me feel different. It was like, you know, we're not supposed to be around you, but who gives a shit, right?
Exactly.
And I still to this day deal with it. Like it's like
Yeah,
every day,
it's-
but it's just, you know, back then it made me act out and I didn't see it then, you know, I was just acting bad or dating
Right.
bad boys and, you know, doing things that nobody wants their teenage daughter to do.
Yeah.
But it was also a learning experience.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, you know, and I tell my daughter, like we did a show, I produced a show for MTV,
Yep.
Families of the Mafia. And my daughter's like, I am not talking about the mafia. I don't care. And like, you know, Karina's a boss in her own right. And
Yep.
she wants to distance herself. But I'm like, you can never distance yourself from your legacy and where you come from.
That's right.
If that made you to be stronger, you know, and Karina's like, she gets it now.
Yep.
But like coming back too, it's like she grew up in Arizona where people are like, wait, what's the mob?
Yeah.
You know, I remember one day I was doing a facial out there and this girl's like, you're Italian from New York. Do you know the Mafia? And I'm like,
Do you have any idea who the hell I am?
You have no idea who you're talking to.
that was a real
This
thing.
guy might have an idea.
Yeah, and I'm like, I think I heard of it. And she's like, you know that John Gotti and Sammy the Bull? You know that? I'm like, just because I'm Italian and I live in New York doesn't mean, really, I'm his daughter, but
Right, meanwhile,
that
she's
doesn't
spot
mean that
on.
I know these people, right?
That is so funny. That's crazy.
So-
Anybody that you grew up with that didn't make it on the show that was pissed, that was like, you guys did this, you know? Because you had so many, I'm sure, friends, girlfriends in the neighborhood. And what was that like once you got the show? Was there a lot of attention and did it change?
So for me, people that you didn't see, and I probably won't even really mention their
Yep,
names
I
right
get
now
that.
because they have true heritage in that world, fathers, grandfathers,
Yep.
uncles. They're just like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Like with these girls, like, what are you doing? And again, some of the girls were connected, but there were some that really weren't. And, you know, I would hear it like, but I have to say, Mob Wives, we didn't choose that name, right? So it was like, it just started happening. And then it was like, Karen's on the show, let's put Mob Wives. It was the pitch, right? It was the South.
Right.
And it also, after a couple of episodes, it started being about us and art. And so the whole mob element was kind of taken out of it.
Yep.
And it's like, we're not telling people secrets or like, I'm saying public knowledge things. And, you know, for me, my family, because of the history is really, my father wrote a New York Times best-selling book. I have a New York Times best-selling book.
Yep.
So it's an open book. And other people were talking about things that were already out there. But yeah, there were people that, you know, even like I have a cousin that still like they couldn't get over it. Like, why are you talking about this?
Yeah.
That's very sacred to us. And I think for us, and I always say this in everything, yes, there was a lot of glitz and glamour to that lifestyle, but there's a lot of heartache and pain. And people did lose family members. There are people that are doing life in prison, and that's not fun.
No.
All the way around. So there was a lot of, you know, pushback.
Yep.
On my part, a lot.
I could imagine. That's why I asked, because I could imagine how many people were involved, how many girls you grew up with.
Yeah.
And they were probably like, why didn't I get that shot? Or why are these women on here?
Especially at that age too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, everyone's just jealous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I will say this, and so Nina Castellano and I used to be friends in high school. We went to school together, and it was right in the Castellano hit, right? My father was involved and her grandfather was killed. And I always give props because I think when it comes to that type of family, they're very classy. With the Castellanos, that was the men's world. And Nina was asked to come on the show, and she did an interview where she sat down, and the producers were harping on me. And she said, I don't hate Karen. I'll never hate Karen. Like, we have so much history in school. We grew up together. She goes, and whatever that life is, that's our fathers and my grandfather. And, You know, she goes, so if you have any other questions. And to this, I never got to say thank you to her.
Yeah.
Because she just didn't. I take my hat off because they're in our world. And people say, well, how can you say the mob is classy? But in our world, they're about as classy and mob as you get, right? That was real gangster of her. And people thought they were going to use the murder, and it was way deeper. It's like some of the things that we talked about on TV is for TV, right?
Yep.
And then there's some things that will still always be for that life. And she left it there.
Yep, that's amazing.
That's
it is
great,
commendable.
And I never said that publicly, but Nina, if you ever see this,
Aw.
I always respect her.
We'll
for
have
that.
to tag her in this, and thank you for sharing it with us. Of course, I could talk to you for the rest of my life. I want to know every single thing, and every instance. But I want you to be, you know, you. And if you want to be vulnerable, feel like it. If not, it's all good. But I want to know, like, what was one moment that really defined you? You know, that you said, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going through this. This was tough." And it defined you to being who you are today. And my God, you have done so much. Your daughter's done so much. You've done so great. But what was that moment, that pain moment that really made you?
I had to stand up in a courtroom with my mother, my brother, and my father and be charged as being a drug cartel, or they didn't use the word cartel, but an organization that sold ecstasy to millions of kids. And realistically, I did. My brother was involved. But they wanted my father. So we were all going to go in separately, and my father was going to go to trial, right? He wasn't going to take a plea because they didn't really have anything on him. Excuse me. But they said it's a family plea or no plea, and they had so much on my brother that he probably would have got 45 years. So my father was forced into taking a plea, and when I had to get up in court, I had to acknowledge that my father was the leader of this ecstasy group, and that my father basically put us in a position to do this. And for me, that was probably one of the most devastating things that I ever had to do because it was so far from the truth. It's actually funny because when I got up there, you have to give your age and your name, and it was like a blank. Like I couldn't even think because I knew what I was doing. And they're like, "How old are you?" And I look back, and my father's just the typical jokester, and he's like, "Don't lie, you're under oath now." And I was just like, whatever. And I had just had my daughter.
Aww.
And I was just like, you know what, Karen? It's done. Like, here we are. My father got sentenced to 19 years in prison. My brother got sentenced to 9 years in prison. My daughter's father, 9 years in prison. And I said, you have to put on your big girl pants and raise your daughter, my nephew, and be able to not hold any more anger anymore and just accept what happened and not break, right? Because I feel like sometimes I didn't think I was breaking when I was younger, but acting out and doing all that stuff, it's time to be a mother. And I think that was like my defining moment in life, because no one should have to stand up in a federal court with your father, brother. Well, it was a state court at the time. My brother and father had a federal charge, but in a court of law with your mother, father, and brother, and basically put all the blame on your father. And my father's lawyers wanted that to happen. So, you know, we wouldn't get sentenced. You know, they would give my brother less time.
Was that moment freeing, or was it completely challenging and sickening? Did you have a million emotions or what?
I had a million emotions. It was very sickening because I really, at that particular moment, was like, wait a minute. So I got to really see an in-depth look at the justice system and how it can be corrupt. Hence why I'm actually an advocate for prison reform, and I'm actually helping someone overturn their life sentence. And it's so passionate to me because I think at that moment to stand up, and it didn't matter the truth, right? The truth was Sammy the Bull, who was one of America's most notorious gangsters, got 6 years for his whole Gotti stuff, and he landed in Arizona with his family, and he or his family were selling drugs, but we're embarrassed now, so basically he's going to take the fall so the government can save face. And I was just like, it's not fair, and you could talk, and I'll tell you something, ABC News came out to interview us, and some of the producers did a 2020 interview with my father a couple of months before that, and I was ready to tell the story, like they got it all wrong, and the producer went like this to me. And I looked at her and she said, it doesn't matter. She said, so you can either you know, we're going to question you about certain things. Are you going to allow us to question you and answer them? And she looked at me like shaking her head, no, like don't do it. Because it doesn't matter. It's going to be a one-sided story at this time. They want to hear that Sammy the Bull landed in Arizona and was selling drugs with his family. And that's what they're going to put out. And that's what they did for years until I was able to actually, hence my book or Mob Wives or things like this, and speak on it.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
It really is. I just feel so bad that you had to go through this at such a young age.
I
But
know.
it happened,
my
and you
God.
know, I
Made
think
you who you
for
are.
me, all that has made my daughter like, and my nephew, and like they're such good kids. So that was-
Invincible. And now look at them.
Yeah.
And you could have taken this and continued to live that lifestyle. You could have done things that you wouldn't be proud of, and your daughter could be doing it too. But you didn't. You made a turn for yourself. You did what you could, and I'm so happy for you and your
Thank
family.
you.
So
Thank
thank you so
you.
much for joining us today.
I appreciate you having
We
me.
love you.
Yes.
It's been an honor and a pleasure to meet you. You know, icons in America and amongst the Italian culture. And I know that it's crazy to say, but you know, these are the moments that define our culture, right? As Italians. And I'm happy you're able to find the pride and to continue on and to do amazing things.
Thank you.
So
I
thank you for
appreciate
sharing
that.
your
Thank
story.
you.
We love you, and
You're
we're here
amazing.
cheering you on, girl.
She's
we
so
really
beautiful.
Are.
I keep looking at her. I'm like,
Stop
she's
it. You're
I know.
beautiful.
No,
Stop
but
it.
she's Ashley's.
Thank
I
you
mean,
so
she has a
much.
glow. What do you use on
I
your
know.
skin, girl?
Ashley needs to be a model.
Yeah.
We got Johnny.
You gotta go to her spa.
Dude, yes.
That's what
we
I
talked
said.
about it. We talked
Yeah.
about it.
I said, squeeze me in anytime.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
You're
Karen.
welcome.
And I just want people to know where they can find you, find your story.
You can. Well, Instagram is like my thing, so it's Karen Gravano on Instagram.
Yep.
And I have all the body depot.
Yep.
Is the spa, but I have all the links and everything from my personal Instagram.
Make sure you check it out because her Instagram's awesome. I started following a couple of weeks ago. You're the best.
And I actually do the treatments. Like I have people come in and be like, "You're really gonna do it?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm such a anal and I have to do it
Yeah.
right." So I actually do the treatments.
I love it. I love it.
okay,
That's
all right,
awesome.
okay. I'm excited. Now
You gotta
I'm
get
in.
Ashley
I'm
in.
in.
I mean, come on.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's do
Thank
it.
you.
There.
Yes. Thank you so much. And one more time, your handles.
Karen Gravano on Instagram and the Body Depot.
All right. Thank you so much. You can find me at Michelle Barone online. And
You
Ash,
guys can find me at Ash McPherson, 2 H's on all socials.
thank you so much for joining. See you
Bye.
next time.